Boy, there were bottles flying everywhere. It was quite the shock.
Tonight on the NewsHour, Anchorage shaken to the core. What this major earthquake has done to our city and what may lie ahead as the tremors continue.
Rocking and rolling, the quake sends a dangerous shower of rocks and boulders onto the Seward Highway.
And flying off the shelves, how the quake turned some local businesses into a big mess today with items flying all over the place.
Plus, we have some tips on how to keep your home safe.
The NewsHour starts now.
You're watching KTUU Channel 2 Anchorage, Alaska's news source. And now, the Channel 2 NewsHour from the state's #1 news team.
Good evening. People are still trying to get home tonight after a nerve-wracking day.
Now we have a helicopter in the air tonight. We're going to take a live look at what's going on the Glen Highway right now. Happening now on the NewsHour here on Channel 2 is Tracy Sinclair. Tracy?
Hey, Mike, Rebecca. It is quite a scene out here on the Glen Highway. We're kind of flying right over that area where we're going from 3 lanes down to 1. This is where the bottleneck occurs. Basically, it's trying to bypass the Eagle River Bridge, which we flew over earlier. You could definitely see the cracks in that bridge. Of course, there are a couple of other areas a little farther down the Glen that have other issues. So likely to be a bottleneck close to the Mirror Lake area as well, and including if you're going that direction. And, of course, we still have that damage out at the Palmer Overpass. But you can see traffic is moving, but it is moving slowly. Now, we're starting to see a few fewer cars come in off the Fort Richardson over the J-Bear area, but still a lot of traffic still entering this line of cars. And so anybody that's listening on the radio, just keep your patience with you. It is going to be a slow go, but cars are moving. There's a pretty consistent travel path with these cars going through. So everybody just stay safe and realize you do have kind of a pretty tight bottleneck of 3 lanes down to 1 in a very short space.
Tracy Sinclair in a helicopter high above the Glen Highway tonight. And late this afternoon, the Anchorage Police Chief Justin Dahl announcing some changes in the traffic patterns to try to accommodate all this. Let's go live now to Channel 2's Jill Burke, who's standing by with Chief Dahl. Jill?
Good evening. Chief Dahl, can you just talk about the traffic pattern change again, why we made this one decision?
Sure, yeah. So obviously the traffic going from Anchorage out to the valley most weekday evenings is very, very heavy, and the traffic coming into town is fairly light during that time. Even though that a lot of people have been sort of headed back to the valley throughout the course of the day, we knew there'd be a lot of extra traffic during the evening rush hour. So we wanted to maximize our ability to let traffic go out to the valley during that time period. So we elected to close the one inbound lane and have all 3 lanes go outbound. Obviously, with the damage to the highway, we're not able to use the 3 normal inbound lanes, so we've had some of that inbound traffic diverted into the normal outbound lanes. And we just shut that diversion down temporarily so all that traffic can flow out to the valley as smooth as possible. We didn't anticipate that taking a whole long time. As I think I mentioned earlier, about a half an hour to an hour, and then we'd open up that one inbound lane again. We're just trying to get people home as efficiently as we can.
Thanks. And I do have another question for you. But, you know, one of the things that we learned earlier today is that there are no known fatalities connected to this event, which is a blessing. People are very thankful for that with such a large earthquake, we have a relatively small amount of damage compared to the scale of the earthquake. Not to say that the damage isn't small itself. One thing I wanted to ask you about, you mentioned you felt the earthquake. You were in a downtown building when it happened. Tell me about that moment. And then you said even before it stopped shaking, police started deploying out into the community.
No, that's right. So obviously APD has its new downtown headquarters location. We have just a little bit of staff moved in already as we're sort of working our way into getting the building ready for us. My office happened to be one of the early ones to be moved because I don't have much that needs to be moved down there. And I was there with my assistant and some other of the admin staff. I think anybody that's lived in Alaska for a long time knows what feeling an earthquake is like. You know, you feel a little bit of shock and you think, oh, we're having an earthquake. And but it got stronger and continued, and everybody became a little bit concerned. It was certainly the strongest earthquake I've felt since I've lived in Anchorage since 1985. And so as soon as it started to taper off, I immediately contacted the dispatch center, make sure 911 was still working, make sure that we still had that emergency infrastructure in place to receive calls from residents. I started checking in with units in the field, giving supervisors some instruction on things to start checking on. And by the time I turned my portable radio on, which really the shaking hadn't even started yet, I could hear the police officers that were already in the field doing the things we expect them to do, checking on critical infrastructure, checking with people that they could see, checking the buildings they were nearby, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chief Justin Dahl. We know that they will have extra staff out and about on the streets along with Anchorage Fire Department. So if you see them, know that they're out doing the work that they need to clean up after this event. Back to you.
All right, Joe Burke reporting live for us tonight. Governor Bill Walker did an aerial tour of Anchorage to check out the damage earlier today. Channel
2's Rich Maurer was there as the governor gave his report to the entire state. Live on Channel 2, Rich.
Well, yes, the governor had a press conference today. He basically talked about how much he really appreciated Alaskans helping Alaskans, how much he appreciated the first responders, how much he appreciated even the federal government coming in and offering assistance. Which brings us to another point. The people, we're in the State Emergency Operations Center here. You can see there's a lot of activity here. People are calling in with damage to their houses. They're saying, don't do that. Call your local government, call your municipality, report it, take a picture, document it somehow, and then make a repair. And if you need to, file with the state or file with your insurance company. But no one knows at this point what the disaster declaration means in terms of who's paying for what. So there's no point calling the state. At this point, you're just clogging up a line. Mike?
I can't say enough about the first responders. As we flew over the highways that were traffic diverted, they were there immediately, putting people over on the other side of the highway, closing down some of the highways. Some of it was done in precautionary stage. The airport, the upper ramps were closed just to check those out first. Those are now all open again.
And there's been a lot of closures for people checking things out. The railroad was closed today while people check out the tracks and the line. The Trans-Alaska Pipeline was closed for a while, but now has been reopened with no damage found. So all in all, it was a major quake, but there's not a lot of damage. Rich Maurer?
All right. Rich Maurer reporting live for us tonight. Rich, thanks for the update. Now, Rebecca, one of the images from this quake that I think we're all going to remember for years was that scene of what happened at Minnesota Drive and International Airport Road.
It definitely was. A couple went into a wild ride. The road beneath them collapses. Channel 2's Hank Davis is there live tonight. Hank.
That's right, Mike, Rebecca. I think that everyone in Southeast Alaska got that complimentary wake-up call at around 8:30 this morning. That earthquake rocking the area and doing some damage. We're still at the scene of some of the worst of that damage. You mentioned Minnesota Drive behind the camera. This is the on-ramp. This gets up onto the International Airport Road, heads to the airport. Very busy area, a lot of travel. So you can see the crews out here working diligently. Their goal right now is to get that sinkhole cleared out, get rid of all the loose material that the earthquake shook around, and then to get this road operating back normal again. You know, the on-ramp southbound also shut down right now. They've got a crew over there assessing that damage as well. For now, they're asking people to kind of plan around this area, not to go there. We actually talked to some of the MDOT crew, or some of the Department of Transportation crew members earlier this afternoon. They told us a little bit about the project, and we caught up with the couple that was inside of a car that was inside of that sinkhole hours ago.
Well, the whole car started weaving, and so we started slowing down, and as we went up the on-ramp, everything around us started crumbling away. Yeah, it was a little scary.
You can see that they were actually in pretty good spirits. Their car slowly sank down into the bottom of that sinkhole. Neither of those passengers injured. They got their car out safely. No damage to the car, surprisingly, but plenty of damage here on the scene. These are just a few of the roads that have been impacted by that earthquake. And again, like I mentioned, if you're trying to get on International Airport Road, you're going to have to pick another intersection. Both the on-ramps in this area closed. Mike, Rebecca?
All right, Hank Davis reporting from Minnesota Drive tonight. Thanks a lot, Hank. We've been reporting all day about the damage and cleanup in the earthquake aftermath.
Now we're hearing more from people who have been directly affected by this event to see how they experienced the earthquake. Channel 2's Derek Mittemeyer joins us live in studio with more. Derek.
Well, Mike and Rebecca, Neil Shelton of Wasilla took a tour of his community just to try to process and assess the extent of this event. This video Shelton took on Vine Road southeast of Wasilla. You can see the extensive damage completely blocking the roadway. Shelton says he was walking down his stairs when the quake struck, that his house felt like it was on springs. He says this was unlike anything he's experienced since moving here from North Carolina, but it's just the reality of living in the state of Alaska.
You know, it's Alaska. Everything, there's no middle ground in Alaska. Everything's extreme, from the seasons to just anything. So it's all, all part of being here. And I actually enjoy it. So it was an experience.
Now, Shelton also took a trip to a gas station near his home, Turner's Corner. Coming up later in the NewsHour, we will hear from the owner of that store about what he lost, as well as what he gained by staying open for business. Mike, Rebecca?
All right, thanks a lot, Derek. Some amazing video from that gentleman out there in the valley.
It's shocking to see. I'm so glad nobody was hurt. It's shocking nobody was hurt.
Yep. All right, the first quake hit at 8:30 this morning. This is still an ongoing situation tonight. Joe Burke is standing by with Anchorage Mayor Ethan Berkowitz. Joe?
Good evening. We're here at the Emergency Operations Center. Just a short while ago, we had a press conference, and the municipal leaders were explaining that they're in the process of pivoting through the initial damage assessment. And Mayor Berkowitz, where do we stand at this time?
I think we're in a position where we're feeling very comfortable with the progress that's been made during the course of the day. We think that things are very stable. Many people have returned home. Most people have returned home. Most of the city water and sewers is back in operation. Power is back on, and we're just getting things back to normal. But it's going to take a while, and we're very grateful that people weren't really hurt in the course of this.
And you had mentioned that you felt that in relationship to the scale of the earthquake, the scale of the damage is smaller than one might anticipate.
We had a 7-point-something earthquake, and when you look at the fact that we had no fatalities and that the amount of infrastructure damage was fairly isolated, the number of structural damage was fairly minimal, you compare it to what would have happened and what has happened in other earthquake-hit areas in the world, we have done amazingly well, and we've done well because we were prepared for an event like this. Our building codes were strong, we built well, and the population here, the Alaskan public, knows what to do and takes care of itself and takes care of one another.
And walk me through the next couple of hours and maybe the next day in terms of priorities. What's the number one priority, and then where do we move on from there in the next 4, 8, 12 hours?
So the immediate priority is to make sure people stay safe, and that if there are folks who are in need of immediate shelter, that we can find shelter for them for the immediate evening and maybe the next day or so. That's the biggest priority. We're going to make sure that there's a lot of first responders who are available to deal with any of the emergencies that might exist, and we are just drawing down some of the initial response, taking a breath, and seeing where we are when we do our next assessment.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Mayor Ethan Berkowitz, City Mayor in Anchorage. So we heard that residents are being encouraged to boil water. That's a precautionary measure only to make sure that nothing has been contaminated. There are no known issues, but again, the Anchorage AWW is recommending that people boil their water at this time. We've heard that the north-south road corridors are open. There may be detours and delays. Individuals still encouraged to shelter in place, take care of one another, go out, check on your neighbors as well, be prepared for those aftershocks. So that means have on hand what you might need to ride something out in case a larger event takes place again, and that would mean have your fire extinguisher, have some flashlights, make sure you have some food and water. They're going to have another update tomorrow, and they're going to work here throughout the evening. Back to you guys.
All right, Jill, thanks so much for the update. And the mayor mentioned, Rebecca, one of their top priorities is making sure people here in Anchorage have a safe and warm place to stay tonight.
That's very important. That's when they were going to turn things over to Beth Verge to tell us a little bit about how that is working out. Beth, where are you? And tell us about what the story is.
Yeah, Mike, Rebecca, I'm outside the Egan Center in downtown Anchorage. Right now, it is bitter cold downtown, but that area is actually serving as a warming shelter for tonight.
I was very, very panicked and quite shaken up.
So we talked a little bit with people who were inside the shelter earlier today. There were less than 24 people in there, and only a handful were there specifically because of the earthquake. But they all said that they were thankful to have a space to go to. As for what's visible here in downtown Anchorage right now, a lot of streets got the traffic moving, but lights are out in some sections. There are windows that have fallen out of some of the taller buildings, and so there are areas that are cordoned off as well. So you want to watch out for those if you are walking downtown. And then, of course, the icy streets, things like that, the normal, those are all still going on. But again, the Egan Center, is serving as a warming shelter for tonight, and we'll bring you more of this story later in the NewsHour.
All right, thanks a lot. Beth Verge reporting from downtown Anchorage tonight. We've heard so many here, we're hearing stories from so many of our viewers sharing how they felt as the quake happened.
I love Alaska. I'm not leaving.
That's what a lot of people told us today. Our live coverage continues as we go around South Central to survey the damage. All right, welcome back to our continuing coverage of this major seismic event that hit the Anchorage area and a big portion of South Central today.
It is all anybody is talking about right now.
Yep, and a lot of people are still dealing with it, trying to get home tonight. We have a helicopter in the air tonight, and Tracy Sinclair is high above the Glen Highway. Tracy, give us an update. How is the traffic situation headed outbound?
Well, we're still dealing, obviously, with some very heavy traffic. We're right near the exit from J-Bear, of course, on the Fort Richardson side. And what I can say is when we first went up in the air at 5 o'clock, there was a massive line of traffic across this bridge all the way into the Fort Ridge area. Now, this has gone down. We've only got about 5 cars on the bridge, so we are starting to see the traffic, at least almost like the tail end, but we're still seeing those cars come in from Anchorage. So at this point, we are just dealing with the heavy traffic, very consistent. Right before the Eagle River Bridge, we go down from 3 lanes down to 1, and that's what's slowing everybody down. Once you get through Eagle River, we do have a bit of a clearing area, and people can move at a higher speed. Things break up a little bit. There's also likely a couple more bottlenecks depending on how far out you are heading. So we want to give everybody a heads up to just kind of hold your patience. We've still got cars coming in on the Glen Highway from the Anchorage area. So we're not quite seeing the end of this yet coming through this night. Mike, Rebecca?
All right, Tracy, thanks so much. And Rebecca, one of the things that Chief Dahl mentioned in their press conference late this afternoon was the chief is cautioning people these road situations are not going to end in a day or two.
No, and it's good to see that, more, as he mentioned, more people are getting home at this point. Most people are home for the day. You can definitely see the traffic is lessening out there, which is great.
Right.
That people are getting home safely.
Yep. All right, well, the Glen Highway, the Seward Highway, and several major priority roads in South Central have damage.
We have damage on all of our high priority roads. So the Glen, the Seward, Minnesota, there's a lot of stuff out there. So.
The Department of Transportation says as soon as the quake was over, it had crews out there. They inspected up to 100 miles from the epicenter, and on the Seward Highway, there are still rocks coming down.
We still have rockfall going on the Seward Highway past Potter's Marsh, where you have rocks coming down. With every one of these aftershocks we've received, it's a little more unstable, a little more rock comes down.
Of course, this will take months to fix all of the damage. DOT says it also is closely inspecting all of the bridges in the area.
Yeah, you were supposed to be on a plane to the governor-elect's inauguration on Monday.
I'm supposed to be leaving on Sunday for that.
Yeah, and we've been told just a few minutes ago that was supposed to be in Norfolk Monday before noon. We're told by Governor-elect Mike Dunleavy's spokesperson just a few minutes ago, those plans are still kind of in flux. They have not made a firm final decision as to whether they're going to proceed with that, of course, with the developments of the day.
And it's interesting, today is actually the Governor Walker's official last day on the job. He was in an elevator at the Atwood building when all of this happened, and quite the last day at work.
Yep. A scary way out. All right.
When we come back, we're going to go talk with NewsHour about gas safety. The company says it has been very busy fixing leaks today. Let's bring Jackie Purcell into the mix to talk about the earthquakes we've been having today.
You know, Jackie and I were talking about this earlier. When you look on the map, it looks like a swarm of earthquakes. We had the big one hit just a few months.
Say it's like every 30 minutes now.
I was looking at the charts, and it seemed like every 30 minutes. And I think we're going to go to Jackie now, who's got a chart up.
That's right. I got the weather computer up so you can see that swarm of earthquakes there that have resulted as a result of an outcropping of the original earthquake that happened this morning at 8:29 a.m. So let's take a look at that graphic again, because we're going to show you what is causing these earthquakes. It's a very tectonically oriented place here in Alaska. We've had at least 14 aftershocks since this morning, ranging from 4.0 to 5.7 magnitude. It's all because of the Pacific plate sliding underneath the North American plate, and that boundary is right along the Aleutians. It's called a mega thrust boundary, and when that plate slides underneath, there is slippage, and sometimes it's a big jolt to the terrain on the surface. So that is exactly the type of situation that happened for us today, that 7.0 magnitude earthquake this morning. And for our current conditions right now, it's been a fairly mild day, 25 degrees. The winds are calm, and that is seen out of Cuddy Park here in Midtown. Now for tonight, we'll see some snowfall. It could be up to an inch into the later hours, and then start mixing with rain and snow. Yes, that's the danger. Here's a look at, did you see that shift? Well, that was when the earthquake occurred, and this was really from the early morning hours out of our Glen Alps camera. Here's a look at the Pacific, and we're going to kind of wind it up and push it into the state of Alaska, where we see a fairly vigorous storm system starting to blast through the southwestern part of the state. Started really last night, but here they are with some mix of rain and snow coming their way. A lot of that cloud cover continuing to push all the way into the interior, sliding into south central as we speak, really. So there it is, the messy situation over southwest Alaska. A little bit of snow way up there toward Hooper Bay, but then that rain snow line and then that push of warm air, turning a lot of that to just plain rain. They're looking pretty quiet into the interior, at least in the last several hours. They're cold too, 1 below. We even see sub-zero temperatures around Ukqiavik, 5 at Dead Horse, 29 back into the Anchorage area. And wow, look at those temperatures out through the Aleutians, and these are the kinds of temperatures that are going to be swinging in and swinging our way across the south central area. I am still on track to see temperatures go up to the low 40s for daytime highs tomorrow here into Anchorage. Well, we're going to continue to see a series of low pressure systems move on through. Here we are into the Saturday time frame, and there's still going to be a host of winter weather advisories, maybe even warnings, along with some gusty winds along those coastal areas as this series of low pressure systems just makes a parade line right up the west coast. Now for your forecast, it's south central that we're looking at, and we'll see some snow Friday, maybe even some freezing rain into the forecast for your Saturday. Those temperatures are going to slowly start to come up. Here's a look at our 7-day forecast for the Anchorage area, going for that rain snow mix tomorrow. 36 for the high temperature on Sunday and Monday. A little bit of a cool down on Tuesday, but again on the above average side of winter. Here we go. A mix of rain and snow entering the region. It's going to be a weekend of cleanup because of all the, displaced items from this earthquake. But let's end it with saying, have a pleasant weekend, everyone.
A good positive thought. Another
yes,
blessing
really,
of this, Jackie, we're not dealing with bitterly cold, sub-zero temperatures.
That is so true, Mike and Rebecca, yeah.
All right, we'll see you back in a few minutes. All right, looking for major infrastructure issues. Coming up on the NewsHour, we'll have an update on the condition of the Trans-Alaska Pipeline after this big earthquake. All right, welcome back. All of the big shaking today threw businesses for a loop during today's earthquake.
Now, what's the impact like for small businesses? Channel 2's Kaylinda Kendall has the details from small business owners today.
Hi there, Mike and Rebecca. Well, small business owners told me they are feeling the impact after today's earthquake. I caught up with one owner of Pete's Violin Shop who says he has tens of thousands of dollars worth of instruments destroyed. Outside Peter's violin shop, it looks like a normal day. But inside shows a very different story.
Open the door and see this, so it takes a while to sink in.
After a 7.0 magnitude earthquake, the damage is setting in for owner Peter Buczynski of Peter's violin shop.
Pretty impressive here.
Around each corner, more and more destruction.
It's amazing. Something like this can survive 100 years, and then you have an earthquake.
Buczynski said he opted out of earthquake insurance.
As a small business owner, you don't think about a total loss, and this was not a total loss, but you don't really, you kind of look at the premiums, and it's so expensive, and especially the earthquake we had a few years ago. I looked into it after that, and the quote they gave me was, pretty high, and I figured, I could do it, but, it's hard enough running a small business as it is in today's economy. But everything you add on top of it, it's almost you can't make ends meet.
Now feeling the impact, he knows he has more problems with the power out.
40%. Once it drops to 39, 38%, then we start having problems. All of these instruments in here are made out of wood, and when it drops below 40%, the instruments start drying out and cracking.
But he says he hasn't lost hope.
But we'll get through it like we do. Alaskans are tough, and we all come together. We'll make it work.
Kaylinda Kindle, Channel 2 News. Now, the owner says for all small business owners, he's hopeful that Alaskans will come together during this difficult time. Mike and Rebecca.
Thanks so much, Kaylinda. After the break, we're going to go back to Jill Burke. She is standing by with the department chair and the fire chief for the Anchorage Fire Department. Welcome back. It was a pretty scary situation. Immediately after the earthquake, a house caught fire in Midtown, burning it to the ground.
Now, luckily, no one was injured in that fire, but the home is believed to be a total loss. Channel 2 Sean McGuire is live tonight from the site of that fire and has more about how to stay safe during an earthquake and gas leaks. Sean?
Mike and Rebecca, the big message from NSAR at the moment is that if you suspect there is a gas leak or you smell a gas leak, you need to get out of your house immediately, call NSAR, and then they'll send a crew to make sure it's safe before you enter. Now, if you look behind me, you'll see the house is looking like a near total loss. The garage area is lit up. They think they may have been able to save that. Firefighters are coming back and forth doing what's called fire follow-up. That's where they're going to spray water on areas that are hot to try and cool them down, to try and stop another fire from starting and potentially destroying the house further. This morning when firefighters arrived, they arrived to a very different scene. Billowing smoke seen from miles around near 76th Avenue and C Street.
We got a call right after the earthquake. It stated there was smoke coming from the structure, and due to the earthquake, all units are responding everywhere else around the city. We were a single unit resource initially, and got here, and then they upgraded it, and then had to divide all the units back out amongst all the other problems around the city. So.
Passers-by saw a house fully engulfed. The home was a total loss. Firefighters worked into the late morning to save the garage.
Nah, the earthquake probably was a contributing factor, but won't know until we do an investigation on it once we have the sources available.
Anything you can add to that?
No. It's a long morning.
Rose Sandhofer says her father and stepmother lived in the house and they were able to get out safely.
But the house has been there for a long time. He came up in 58, and the house was built in the early 60s. So it has been in the neighborhood for a long time.
NSTAR crews were also there, making sure there weren't any gas leaks.
We were just there for precautionary purposes, making sure that it wasn't gas-related, which it appears that it was not.
A home lost, but a loss put in perspective.
Totally happy that nobody's hurt. It could have been a lot worse.
Stand by.
Now APD crews have been busy all day, but so have NSTAR crews who have been working across their service area to try and assess potential damage to gas lines as well as to fix gas leaks. Now crews are working over 3,000 miles of natural gas pipe from Houston all the way down to Homer. Now the most damage is believed to be in Eagle River, close to the epicenter of the earthquake. I'm told downtown is also an area of interest because there is steel pipe that is more liable to split than the plastic pipe used across most of the service area. NSTAR's President John Sims has this recommendation about how to stay safe.
At this point in time, we're responding to about 170 pending calls for leaks that people have smelled for gas. If you are a customer that smells gas, please leave the area and then call NSTAR Natural Gas and we'll respond as quickly as possible.
Now, Sims says there are 12 workers coming up from the lower 48 to help NSTAR in their efforts to fix and assess all the pipe before everything is back to normal, which should be in days rather than hours. Mike and Rebecca.
All right, thanks so much, Sean. Well, Governor Bill Walker took a tour of Anchorage from the air today to look at the damage.
And the governor and several other state officials held a news conference this afternoon to talk about what they saw, and Rich Maurer was there to hear that briefing. He's going to give us a briefing now, Rich.
Yeah, Mike, Rebecca. So Governor Walker spoke upstairs at a press conference. Right now we're in the basement of the state armory, and it's kind of emptying out now as people try, and they're going to be working all weekend. They're going to be working 24 hours, and they want to give some time off to people so that they can get some sleep.
I can't say enough about the first responders. As we flew over the highways that were traffic diverted, they were there immediately, putting people over on the other side of the highway, closing down some of the highways. Some of it was done in precautionary stage. The airport, the upper ramps were closed just to check those out first. Those are now all open again.
Alaska National Guard is in assessment mode, as is the State Emergency Operations Center. We are forward postured, and we are waiting for the request for assistance. But of course, we just don't deploy on our own. This is a home rule state, and so we have local incident commanders.
The governor and Mayor Berkowitz from the city both praised local residents for their calm and also the first responders who came to the rescue. Rich Maurer, Channel 2 News.
All right, Rich, thanks so much. Coming up on the NewsHour, more of our continuing coverage of this major earthquake that hit Anchorage and the surrounding area earlier today. It has been quite a day. We'll see you back in just a minute.
A bird's eye view of the damage will take you on a helicopter tour to see what this major quake has done.
And a big mess on Minnesota Drive. The quake collapses an off-ramp and takes a couple for a wild ride.
You're watching Alaska's #1 news team with Mike Ross, Rebecca Palsha, and Jackie Purcell with the weather. The Channel 2 News Hour continues.
Once the earthquake, first my headboard, it started smashing against the wall. And I was like, okay, so I just held that. But once everything started shaking, my daughter crawled into me and was just screaming, I'm scared, I'm scared.
It was a big shake that we will never forget.
A 7.0 earthquake strikes South Central, destroying roads, buildings, and shutting down countless businesses. So where does Anchorage stand tonight?
Well, late this afternoon, the mayor, the police, and fire chiefs gave us their assessment of what comes next.
Channel 2's Jill Burke has that part of our coverage. Jill.
Good evening. I'm standing here with Anchorage Fire Chief Jody Hetrick, who can talk to us a little bit about what we can do at home, especially regarding gas and structural integrity if we feel concerned about that. It certainly shook homes. It was frightening. It's unnerving, and we have aftershocks anticipated still to come. So what do we do with that? How do we know that our home is okay?
So as I kind of covered this a little bit earlier, was the fact that if you need to do a walkthrough, good thorough walkthrough of your house, make sure that you don't have any water leaks. If you smell gas, get out of your house, call 911, call to make sure that gets reported if it's in your house. If you, as you're walking through, if you see small cracks in the sheetrock, that's probably okay, but if you can see daylight through those cracks, definitely your house is not safe. The other thing you should keep an eye on is go over with your family and make sure everyone knows what to do if we get an aftershock in the middle of the night. I know sometimes your children are frightened or elders may be frightened of what to do. Have your family members give them a responsibility. So if the aftershock happens, make sure that they know what to do. Practice it tonight. This is always a really good night for an earthquake drill after this has happened. And maybe give a kid a flashlight or a whistle to blow, or give them some responsibility and something that gives them a little control over the situation. Maybe it'll help them sleep a little bit better.
That's great advice. Thank you. And another kind of remarkable thing emerging from this is that we don't have any known fatalities, and we don't have any known injuries connected directly to the event, at least at this time. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's correct. As far as we know, as far as EMS numbers that we transported and everything, we don't have we haven't had a chance to really focus on those numbers and see what happened, but it's been reported that we didn't have any fatalities throughout the municipality due to the earthquake, nor did we have any injuries, significant injuries that we had to, nothing due to the structural collapse or the fires that happened or vehicle crashes or things like that. So everyone was very safe. We're really thankful for that.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. That's Anchorage Fire Chief Jody Hetrick. Back to you guys.
Joe Burke, thanks so much. Great advice from the fire chief about children.
That was fantastic, because one thing we talk about with these earthquakes is you just have no control.
Right.
You have no control of how long it's going to take or what happens next. So taking back a little bit of that control is probably good for all of us.
Absolutely. So your girls are going to sleep with a flashlight?
Yes.
And you too, right?
And me too.
Okay, there you go. All right. All right, sometimes the damage is best seen from above. And earlier today, Tracy Sinclair and photojournalist Gary Lamar went up in a helicopter to take a closer look at the damage.
Here is a look at what she saw from the air.
Early Friday, the city was a mix of heavy traffic and empty roads. The outbound Glen Highway lanes were slow but moving. The blockage was caused by the outbound Eagle River Bridge being closed. We flew over the area and were able to see 2 major cracks in the bridge pavement. A little farther down the highway near the Mirror Lake turnoff, major damage to the highway as the ground fell away under one of the lanes. Traffic had been diverted. The outbound road was moving in 2 directions. The off-ramp toward Palmer also had major damage, though it didn't look quite as dramatic. The soil beneath the off-ramp seems to have sunk, and there is a distinct crack in the pavement. Vine Road in Wasilla showed some of the most dramatic impacts. Though it isn't part of the main highway, it is a main thoroughfare. The road was blocked off, but people seemed curious and were climbing on the broken pavement. High above Anchorage, Tracy Sinclair, Channel 2 News.
Tracy brought us that view earlier today when the sun was still up.
And we're going to take to her a look now in the darkness and see if she sees any updates. Tracy.
Hey, Mike, Rebecca, we are here. We have actually moved a little farther out of town. We are now near where Mirror Lake, the turnoff is, and the damage had occurred. So earlier in the day, they had moved inbound traffic over to the outbound lane so that both lanes of traffic could go. As you guys have been discussing, they are closing that one lane. So we wanted to come out and get a look. So this line of cars that we're looking at are actually people that are trying to move inbound. And so they're trying to keep the outbound lanes open. So that's what you're seeing there. Quite a line building up. And we're going to start heading back closer to Anchorage, and we'll show you what's going on when we get there near Eagle River. But between Eagle River and here at Mirror Lake, traffic outbound is moving very well. But these inbound people are now waiting till they open the inbound lane again, because the outbound lane is taking up both sides.
All right, Tracy Sinclair live for us tonight. Again, that's the inbound Glen Highway near Mirror Lake, and you can see the flashing police lights down there. Everyone's going to have to be patient to get around
Patient.
up
Heard
and
some
down the
people
Glen
took about
Highway.
3 hours to get home today.
Yeah. Speaking of patience and road repairs that are going to be needed, we've seen this view all day today. The off-ramp going from Minnesota Drive onto International Airport Road, it collapsed.
It was scary. Lots of photos out there on the internet of that one right now, and that is where we find Hank Davis to give us an update. Hank.
Well, Rebecca, Mike, you're talking about patience. Thankfully, the crew's already out here working, so hopefully we won't have to be too patient before cars are able to get back onto International Airport Road from the northbound lane of Minnesota Drive. Now, the sinkhole that we're looking at, you've probably seen the pictures, whether it was on social media, whether it was on a newscast. This has it's been shared pretty heavily. The scene's changing a lot. You can see the crews have already moved a lot of that road, all the loose material that the earthquake actually shifted out from under the roadway, causing that collapse. It's all been cleared. And from what we understand, the Department of Transportation's focus right now is getting this area up and operating normally again as soon as possible. You know, with the airport right there and this being one of the major intersections, a lot of people travel this daily. So for now, if you have a flight to make sure that you give yourself plenty of time and that you're aware that you're not gonna be able to travel this way. You're gonna have to find an alternate route. Some trouble on the southbound on-ramp as well. So again, if you're trying to get onto International Airport Road, don't do it on Minnesota Drive. We got crews out here working, a lot of people driving through the area, kind of slowing down to take a look. We want to advise you not to do that. Definitely, you want to take a look at it. We'll give you a closer look, but just try to stay away from this area while they work everything out and make sure that things are back to normal again soon.
That's definitely what everybody wants. Thanks so much, Hank. Well, earthquakes are pretty scary, even for animals.
Noticed our 3 reindeer were huddled up together out in the middle of their habitat. Wolves are pretty active. The tigers were very active.
Now that's Pat Lampy over at the Alaska Zoo. He says he wasn't with the animals when the earthquake happened, but some of them were acting a little strange when he went around to check on everyone. In particular, he mentioned that the reindeer were acting differently than normal. He says there was also minor damage at the Alaska Zoo. Staying safe in your home after the big earthquake.
An update from NSTAR as it begins examining buildings for gas leaks. The areas they'll be looking at coming up.
So what about this situation for shelters for people who need them?
The mayor said earlier it's a top priority to make sure everybody has a warm place to stay tonight. Channel 2's Beth Verge is in downtown Anchorage with an update on that situation. Beth?
Yeah, that's right. We are outside the Egan Center in downtown Anchorage. A few more people have trickled into that building, which is a warming center for tonight. But even with the quiet downtown right now, there's a little more going on outside than in.
I slept very, very well. And at 8:53 this morning, I was woken up by tremors in the building.
In downtown Anchorage, a ghost town.
And then I realized I was in an earthquake. Scary. Very, very scary.
Streets, stores, now eerily quiet after a massive quake shook this section of the state.
All of a sudden, the lights went out and things are just flying and hitting you, and we just get everybody out. Just get out.
A shelter, though, near empty. The only telltale sign of a quake at the Egan Center, a crooked portrait not so easily adjusted.
I'm still a little bit shaken up and also in fear of future aftershocks and what's going to happen next.
And crews surveying the building and others for damage. But go outside and you'll see a little more.
It's 8:30, which is our busiest time.
A chimney that fell from atop a local sandwich shop.
The mess inside, but this is the only damage.
Windows blown out from a tattoo parlor and local office buildings. But most people either stuck at work or hanging back to take care of their own or helping to restore power and order around here.
So for more information from the Emergency Operations Center, you can call 211. Again, here in Anchorage, the Egan Center is the location for a warming shelter. In Girdwood, the Girdwood Fire Crew will lead you to the right place. And in Chugiak and Eagle River, that is the senior center where you're going to want to head for assistance. But call if you can, and they might be able to help you even further. Back to you.
All right, Beth Verge reporting from downtown Anchorage tonight. NSTAR officials have been extremely busy working to fix gas leaks and assess any potential damage across the service area.
Crews are working over 3,000 miles of natural gas infrastructure from Houston down to Homer. The most damage is believed to be in Eagle River, close to the center of the earthquake. We are told that downtown is also an area of interest because there is still piping that is more liable to split. NSTAR's president has this recommendation about how to stay safe.
At this point in time, we're responding to about 170 pending calls for leaks that people have smelled for gas. If you are a customer that smells gas, please leave the area and then call NSTAR Natural Gas and we'll respond as quickly as possible.
Now, Sims told us there are also 12 workers coming up from the lower 48 who are coming to our area to help with those efforts. Always good to know where the gas shutoff, the main gas shutoff to your home on the outside is, so you can
This is
turn
a
it
good
off quickly.
reminder that we should look at these things before something happens to know where all of our infrastructure is to take care of it and not be surprised about where is this, where is that.
Yep, good reminder for all of us. Well, earlier in the newscast, we heard from a man up in Wasilla about his experiences during today's big earthquake.
After a short walk to a convenience store near his home, Neil Shelton saw multiple cars lined up for gas, and inside that store, extensive inventory damage. Channel 2's Derek Minnemeyer heard from the owner of Jim's Corner. He joins us now with more. Derek.
That's right, Mike and Rebecca. Jim Turner, the owner of Turner's Corner, says in 35 years, he never shut his station down. Not even today's massive earthquake could end that streak. Turner told me he was one of the few gas stations who stayed open for business in the Wasilla area, and that's why he had cars lined up for blocks to fill up. He believes convenience stores like Jim's Corner are important in disaster situations. And even though he lost over $3,000 in inventory damage, countless broken bottles, seen here in these photos, he says he had a responsibility to his community to remain open for business.
And I think a business like mine, a convenience store in a rural neighborhood area like this, carries a lot of responsibility in emergency situations, because we handle a lot of things that people are going to need when things.
Now, Turner says if his calculations are correct, he sold around 6,000 gallons of fuel today. And as he doesn't have earthquake insurance, he says that will help offset the cost of lost inventory. Mike, Rebecca.
All right, thanks a lot, Derek. Our Channel 2 viewers are always so great with sharing their pictures and videos.
They really
in
are
big stories like
fantastic.
this.
Everyone's super proactive.
We really do appreciate it when you do that to help us all out. Well, the earthquake struck just as schools were getting underway today. The Anchorage School District sent out a message to parents to pick up their kids as soon as they were able.
As for next week, ASD sent out a message later on saying, in light of the earthquake damage experienced today, all facilities in Anchorage School District will be closed on Monday and Tuesday, December 3rd and 4th, 2018.
Now, the district is continuing to assess facility damage and will keep us updated as new information becomes available. They said watch the district homepage, social media, and local TV and radio stations to get updates on Anchorage schools.
As for the Matanuska-Susitna Borough School District, a statement on their website says all school activities, testing, sports, events, bazaars, religious services, etc., are canceled this evening, Saturday and Sunday, district-wide.
All Matsu Borough schools are closed Monday and Tuesday, except Glacier View, Trapper Creek Elementary, Talkeetna Elementary, Sioux Valley High School, Willow Elementary, and Berrioza. I've never heard of that one. Have you?
No, I have not.
Well,
I'll have to
learn
go
something new every
meet
day,
those.
I guess. All right, we'll have more in our continuing coverage of this event that has shaken all of us today coming up.
I spoke to some people today up at Flat Tub who said today's event was terrible and they absolutely hated it. And that's how a lot of us felt today as we dealt with this earthquake. These guys are from Florida. They flew up here and they said that they were afraid the tsunami would hit, so they drove up to Flat Top.
It was terrible. I hated it.
I was just getting up, washing my face, getting ready to work.
We were just saying how a hurricane is much more gentle than an earthquake. We have time to prepare. You know, this is like, it's on you.
You imagine coming all the way from Florida, come to Alaska, and the first thing that happens to you?
That's a terrible hello.
Yeah, you end up on top of a mountain trying to keep away from a tsunami. Oh my goodness gracious. All right, I think we're going to check out the traffic conditions out on the Glen Highway. We've been monitoring. We're going to go to Jackie now. Jackie, why don't you join us? Going to get an update on where this earthquake was centered and all of the aftershocks we've been feeling all throughout the morning and into the afternoon. Jackie?
All right, well, there you're looking at our earthquake map, and you can see the original earthquake of 7.0 magnitude at 8:29 a.m. We've had at least 14 aftershocks that range from 4.0 to 5.7 magnitude, and that 5.7 was just like 3 miles away from the city of Anchorage. So there's one reason why it was so widely felt, and it's a depth of 27 miles there. Now, as we pull out, we've been talking about how the North American plate and the Pacific plate, their interaction really causes this tectonic activity. So we have a lot of volcanoes that have sprouted up along the Aleutian chain, just where that really impressive megathrust boundary is. This is Bartlett High School. This is from Kara Raposa. She said it was quite the scene there. You can see some of those ceiling tiles. This would be the perfect scene where you would duck, cover, and hold.
Right. Yes, indeed.
And those look like sturdy desks, so there's no kids to worry about in that classroom at this point. And this is Point Mackenzie, and since I'm not in front of the map, I can't show you, but you can see that dark area?
Over on the right?
Yeah, all that land slid down because you can see on either side of it where there's still a little more intact. But there was a row of trees and they're kind of now down at the bottom. It's a little hard to see, but yeah, it is illustrative of how impressive this.
Point Mackenzie was pretty close to the epicenter for the first big one this morning, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of photos that have been coming in, and even some videos of people's reactions, like walking outside, like, what's going on? Feeling like, what's going on with my car? It looks possessed in my driveway. You know?
I got to ask you, Jackie, you've lived your entire life. Have you ever felt like something like this in Anchorage?
You know, the sad and weird thing is, not that it was sad necessarily, but I was on a plane that has large rubber tires.
Oh.
So we were kind of like, what's going on? We did not feel it like the rest of the city of Anchorage did. We knew something was happening because the C-130 was visibly shaking and it was going good, but I did not feel it to the extent and the magnitude that other people in the city of Anchorage did.
That was earlier today. What's happening now is a big traffic problem out on the Glen Highway. Here's a live shot from a helicopter. Tracy Sinclair, one of our photojournalists up there, will be keeping tabs on the traffic situation, and be assured if anything develops with this through this evening, we'll be back on the air and on KTUU.com.